This episode of the Practice of Therapy podcast is brought to you by Green Oak Accounting and TherapyNotes, greenoakaccounting.com and therapynotes.com. This is the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, helping you to navigate your private practice journey. This is session number 161 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Hello, everyone. My name's Gordon Brewer. Glad you've joined me for the podcast. Hope you're having a good week so far, or weekend, whenever you might be listening to this. And glad you've joined us. And if this is your first time joining us for the podcast, I'm glad you found us. Glad you're here. And I hope you'll take time to subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. So, yeah, I'm excited about this particular episode because, you know, like a lot of my episodes, it seems like I'm able to, and I don't know that it's done intentionally, but it just seems to happen this way, is that we get onto kind of some themes that go through these different episodes. But one of the things that I think has come up as a theme here recently is just for folks to really figure out ways to create more diversity of their income within their practice. You know, our traditional way of thinking about private practice is that we recruit clients or we get referrals for clients to come see us, and we try to get a lot of those and really fill our practices up. But one of the things about that is that particularly for folks that are in solo private practice, there's a limit to that. You can very quickly reach kind of a ceiling, or a glass ceiling, as I like to call it, of being able to see enough clients. And so one of the things that a lot of us have to figure out is, one, do we want to remain a solo practitioner, and do we want to move into group practice, or do we figure out other ways to diversify our income and create other income streams for our practice? And so in this episode, we're going to be addressing that. I'm looking forward to you hearing from my guest, Amber Benziger. And Amber has created a membership site for clients. And when I found out about this, and when Amber was telling me about it, I just really got excited, because I think that creates a lot of opportunity for people, and creating other ways to get income through their practice. And, you know, even within the model that I use within my practice, and then also with the practice of therapy, one of the things that I enjoy doing is teaching. And so created a lot of different courses and that sort of thing. You know, the G Suite for Therapists, which is the name is going to change here shortly. It's going to be Google Workspace for Therapists, but, because Google changed their name, but also the Money Matters and Private Practice course that I have out there. All of those are ways for me to support the practice of therapy, and also, teach people resources and give them ideas of being able to deal with things, because not everyone is able to do just like one-on-one consulting with me. Again, it's this idea of going from the one-to-one provider of services to the one-to-many. So Amber and I talk about the membership site that she created, really as a way to give other potential clients or other people out there that are dealing with anxiety, because her primary niche is helping people with anxiety, is giving them other ways to be able to get the help that they want. So anyway, we'll get to Amber here in a minute. I'm looking forward to you hearing her story and just what she's created. But along those same lines, depending on when you're listening to this particular podcast episode, I'm recording this in January of 2021. But on January the 22nd, 2021, I'm teaming up again with my friend David Hall to do another live webinar webinar. And in this particular webinar, I'm going to be actually kind of interviewing David and talking with him about what he's done to teach other clinicians about how to create training courses within the context of training other therapists, but also outside of that. So be sure and go and check that out. And you can find out more about that free webinar. Again, depending on when you're listening to this, you can find out about that by going to practiceoftherapy.com/training webinar. And that'll get you there. That's the easiest way to get there because the other URL is terribly long, but that'll get you over to be able to sign up for the webinar in Webinar Ninja. And be sure, even if you're not able to join us for that webinar, which is going to be at 2 p.m. on Friday, the 22nd of January 2021, even if you're not able to attend the live webinar, still sign up for it so you can get the recording of it. So the disadvantage to not being there live is you can't ask questions. But anyway, David reached out to me about doing this webinar, and we did it just kind of on the fly, kind of impromptu. And anyway, be sure and check that out. practiceoftherapy.com/training webinar, and that'll get you to the page to sign up for that. Also, depending on when you're listening to this, I have just a few slots left in the focus groups that have been, if you're on my email distribution list, you will have gotten some information about that. But if you'll go over to practiceoftherapy.com/focus group, you can find out more about joining a focus group with me, which, one of the people that joined this last one asked me, so, well, who's going to be facilitating it? Well, I'm going to be facilitating it, so I might not have communicated that well. But a focus group is another name for it is a mastermind group, and it's just a great way to get together with a group of peers and other like-minded people to really move the needle forward in your practice. It's a way to get support and also hold yourself accountable in doing the things that you need to do to grow your practice and really kind of get ahead. I know in the past for me, anytime I've been a part of a mastermind group or a focus group, it has absolutely been a true return on my investment. In other words, I got the results that I was looking for and was able to, it was well worth my time and the money spent. So be sure and check that out. Again, hopefully you're listening to this right before the first part of the week of this week, but it's that focus group is going to start on Thursday, January the 21st at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And so I'm just putting this last little announcement out there to let people know about the last few slots that are available. It's only 6 to 8 people that are going to be in the group. And so if you don't grab it now, you probably won't be able to get in for a while. So anyway, be sure and check that out. practiceoftherapy.com/focus group. And also, before we get to Amber, I'd like to invite you to go over and check out our sponsors for today's podcast. Green Oak Accounting, greenoakaccounting.com, is the leading accounting firm specifically for therapists. That's all they specialize in, whether you are in group practice or solo practice. They will help you navigate the whole financial side of your practice. Julie Harris and her team will do a free consult with you and find out what your needs are and help you get you where you want to go. So be sure and check them out, greenoakaccounting.com. And also be sure to check out TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com. They are the leading electronic health record system for private practices and mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice, and I couldn't do without them. It's a wonderful platform that handles not only your scheduling, but also helps you with your documentation, and also has a patient portal that is second to none. It's got telehealth included in that or part of that, and so you can do it all in one place. Also, if you're insurance-based like me, your insurance claims can be filed electronically, all in TherapyNotes. Again, I can't live without them. So be sure and check them out, therapynotes.com, and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, just GORDON, and you can get 2 months of their services for free. So be sure and check them out. So without further ado, I'm happy for you to hear my conversation with Amber Benziger, and talking about how she has created a membership site for clients. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Practice of Therapy podcast. And I'm so happy for you to get to know today Amber Benziger. And Amber, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here today with you.
Yes, I was excited to find out about you and find out a little bit about what you're doing. You're based in New Jersey, is that correct?
That is correct, yes,
yeah.
In Cherry Hill, right outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So as I start with everyone, why don't you tell folks a little bit about your private practice journey and how you've landed where you've landed?
Sure. So, I've been doing therapy for the past 10 years. About 2 years ago, I was a director of a substance abuse treatment center. And as much as I loved doing that, I felt compelled to kind of go out on my own. It's always been the goal for me. And there was a change in structure there, a change in management. And I felt like, this is the time. So I took the leap kind of with little preparation. So kind of just jumped 2 feet into it. But I started my private practice, Vitality Behavioral Health, about 2 years ago now. And I love it. I wouldn't change it for anything.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you're a typical kind of therapist in that I think a lot of us start out in agency work and really, really figure out that we really want to be more independent and be able to do what being in practice for ourselves can bring in terms of autonomy and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It was time to kind of go out on my own and really dive deep into, my interest and my passions, and helping people that I wanted to, not just kind of box myself in. So
right. Yeah. And that's so important. So speaking of that, tell folks a little bit about kind of your niche and your passions. The kind of things that you're working with and the kind of clients that you work with.
Sure. So I would say the majority of my practice is females. I enjoy working with women, especially, in that 20s, 30s, 40s range. And I primarily see clients with anxiety disorders as well as trauma. So that's really who I enjoy working with, and primarily what my practice is made up of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know as we were chatting about before we started recording, is just kind of how this year, well, as we're recording this might come out after the first of the year, but in 2020, let me clarify that. In 2020, it's been a tough year for all of us, really, in many different fronts, with the COVID pandemic, with just dealing with racism and really giving voice to that, and the political climate and all of those things have just been just a really anxiety-producing kind of thing. What are you seeing in your practice, and what kind of themes are you seeing come up for people around all those things?
Absolutely. So, as a Black therapist, I think it's really important for me to discuss those things and advocate those things because I have that unique perspective. And I would say a large majority of my practice is also, women of color. So it's something that we've been seeing. I've been seeing a lot of, racial trauma, a lot of anxiety around the election, around things that are going on. As we both know, racism isn't something new. But I feel like it has definitely had a spotlight on it and been elevated. So it's definitely something that I feel like I'm talking about much more in my practice. than I have before. It's not something, it's something that definitely came up before, but I feel like comes up more frequently now.
Right. Yeah. And are you finding that I think with all the press that we've had over the last year, going back to George Floyd's death and murder and all of that, do you feel like we're getting to a place where we're kind of giving people more permission to talk about these things?
I do. I feel like, there was a time where it wasn't as open to discuss, and now it is, but I feel like then it kind of fell off a little bit. Mm-hmm. So you kind of saw there was this uproar of everybody wanting to talk about it, and now people again wanting to sweep it under the rug. So I think it's important to still hold space for that as those issues haven't gone away and people still have those concerns and worries. So I think it's something that we need to be mindful that it's not a trend. It's something that we need to continue to work towards. Right.
And I couldn't agree more. I think, there's, unfortunately, I think a lot of times our conversations follow whatever is in the news, and the fact that we just get news so instantaneously. So, yeah. Well, I'm glad. I'm thankful to you for doing the work that you're doing, and because I think now more than ever, we need great people to be working in this field. I think too, fortunately, I think we're starting to kind of get rid of some of the stigma around mental health issues, and that people are seeing that, okay, a lot of us struggle with just anxiety and stress and all that brings. So, yeah. So with your work, kind of what is your approach? I think a lot of people might be interested in that.
Sure. So I come from a cognitive behavioral therapy framework. So I use a lot of those skills, but I think you need to adapt it to each client. So a really, humanistic approach. But yeah, I would say that I use a lot of CBT skills.
Right. And I know one of the things we had talked about is that you're a solo practitioner, and I would guess that your practice is pretty full.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a scare. I feel like at the beginning of the pandemic, what was going to happen. I had like one or two clients online, but basically my practice was in office. So that switch, I like many practitioners, I was worried about how that transition would go. And my clients were fantastic with that changeover. And then I've just seen my practice grow incredibly in the past few months with the pandemic, where I had to, have a waiting list and turn people away, which for me is something that I struggle with because I want to help people. And you see a lot of people struggling now and reaching out for help. And I think it's so difficult, to get to that place to reach out for help and then have it be hard to find somebody. That's heartbreaking to me. So that's one of the reasons why I created my membership service, because of that.
Yeah. So when you were telling me about that before we recorded, I just that's exciting to me. So tell us about that and how you created it and what it is and all those kinds of fun things.
Sure. Yeah, I'm so excited about it. So it's called the Anxiety Lab, and it is a monthly membership service for people to come and learn skills to manage and cope with their anxiety. I created it because it was something that I felt like I needed during the pandemic. Like most of us, I felt like the skills that I had and the coping strategies that I would go to, they weren't accessible anymore. We're working from home, me and my husband, and then our two kids are doing school from home. We were just all under the same roof, and it was really stressful. And I became really anxious myself. And then I started getting a bunch of calls and a bunch of people reaching out to me through my social media platforms about working with me, or like, what can I do? I'm feeling very overwhelmed, very stressed out. So I had the idea of creating the lab. So like I said, it's a monthly membership service where you can buy in, And every month I'll release new content on a different topic under the umbrella of anxiety. So anywhere from relationship anxiety to issues with boundaries, to perfectionism. And you'll get online courses. With that, you'll get a workbook that goes with the courses. I'll do some Q&As. There's a community type platform where you guys can talk to each other. You can talk to me. I'll bring in an expert in the field to do a live workshop every month. So just a lot of great content surrounding anxiety, where it can be something that you can utilize in addition to going into traditional therapy, or maybe you want to, up your self-help skills. This is that platform for you. Wow.
I love that. Well, I'm curious, what tools did you use to kind of set all that up, as far as the back end stuff?
Sure. So I'm not a technology person. So I think that was the part that overwhelmed me. Like, can I do this? I think as practitioners, we're always questioning, we know how to do therapy, but do we know how to do all of this next level stuff? So I did a lot of research, and I decided to use the platform Kajabi, because it's great for membership services. It allows me to put the courses on there. It allows me to have the community part, so I don't have to use something like Facebook or something like that. I can do everything right on the platform. It allows me to send out the emails, do the email marketing. So it's an all-in-one stop shop. So I felt like that was the best for what I was doing.
Right. Well, that's brilliant. I think it's one of the things about it, just from a kind of a business standpoint, you've reached that kind of that almost like glass ceiling with your therapy practice, and that there's only so many clients you can see, only so many days a week that you can, and hours that you can devote to kind of the one-on-one thing. And that is really an important piece of being able to go from one-to-one to one-to-many, and being able to figure out the tools and ways of doing that. Kind of the traditional route is to start a group practice where you bring on other people to be in the practice with you. But I love this idea of doing, in fact, I've not yet done anything like this in my practice, but I've had it in the back of my mind of doing something similar, just around, like anger management classes, parenting classes, those kinds of things, because there's so many ways you can do that just in the online space.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to figure out a way to expand and reach more people, because that was really what it was about. Like, how can I help more people, but not bog down myself? As therapists, we can't work all day, every day. I have family and things like that. So how can I reach more people? And my first thought, like you said, was group practice. But with the pandemic, what would that look like? I wasn't really sure how to bring somebody on in this climate. Not saying that it's not feasible, but I felt like this would be a way to reach more people, and at a cost-effective rate. I feel like that's also something that was really important to me as well.
Yeah.
How can this be accessible to people that need it?
Right. How are you getting the word out about this? Is it mainly just through your current caseload, or are there other ways that you're marketing this and getting the word out about it?
Sure. So I market a lot through my social media platforms, specifically Instagram. I feel like it's the one that I utilize the most. So to that platform, and then through other practitioners that I've met on social media platforms have been great. I've jumped on some Instagram lives with other therapists that have, larger followings, and I think that's been really helpful. I've done a couple of Facebook ads. I'm kind of dabbling in that area. I'm not too familiar with it, so I feel like that's something new and something I want to learn about. But a lot of just like word of mouth and utilizing social media and the following that I have on there, and the the therapist friends that I've met on there. Right.
Well, it's like I said earlier, it's a brilliant idea in that you're not only creating, providing your own professional expertise to what you're doing, but you're you've created a way for people to draw on supports from each other, which is such a huge piece, I think, in just being able for people to deal with anxiety and be able to, work through things. So that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's, I think that's my favorite part about it is, yes, there's the courses and there's the content. And I love that I get to talk to people and meet more people than I usually would. Cause I think that's one of my favorite things about being a therapist, meeting people and hearing their story and being, part of that for them. But this is also a great place for them to have community, and be able to talk to each other and lean on each other and feel that validation of like, okay, I'm going through this, you're going through this too. And I think that's kind of like the bread and butter of the anxiety lab, about having that community to lean on and feel like you have that support, when you can't maybe, see your therapist or something like that, the in between. So just having somebody to lean on. Right.
Yeah. So curious, how did the idea come to you?
So I thought about doing a course for a while. And then I was working with a business coach online in a group. I'm like in a mastermind group, and we were talking about doing courses, and that's where I started to really focus my ideas on, like, okay, I'm just going to create a course. But I felt like after that one course, then what happens? Do I just keep creating another course? Like, how does that look? And then I was online looking at things, and a membership service came up by another therapist that she does, Elizabeth Urgel. She does Love Lessons, which is about relationships, and it's great. And I was like, I feel like this could be adapted to anxiety, to what I want to talk about, to what I want to work on. So I kind of mapped it out and drew it out, like what it would look like. And I reached out to her and to bounce some ideas off. And I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I just love that. And it's always exciting to me to see therapists or people in our field really kind of think outside the box in terms of thinking about, reaching more people and being able to do all of that. Yeah. So you've been part of a mastermind group that I know this is a bit of a tangent, but what has that process been like for you?
So that has ended now, but no, it was really great. It was great to meet therapists that were kind of in the same spot as me, because, 2 years into private practice, that's still very new. So kind of, where did I want to go with this, and what are the avenues? I think, and I'm sure tons of people have talked about this before, when we go to school, they kind of put us in a box of like, okay, you do therapy, but like private practice can be hard, and we don't really learn all those business skills. So I feel like the validation of that was amazing. And then we kind of talked about how we can elevate to the next level. Like, what's next? This doesn't have to be it. Like you said, we don't have to just like hit the ceiling and stay, unless that's what we want to do. There are different ways to grow. And I think that was the really cool part about that, just like bouncing ideas off of each other and talking about like what those dreams and those goals are and how to make them come off the paper and come alive. So it was really nice to see like-minded people have those same experiences. Right.
Well, I think with the anxiety lab, one of the things that is great about it, again, with the outside the box kind of thinking, is that there are a lot of people out there that wouldn't necessarily come to therapy, but they would do something like that, would feel more like that would be of more help to them than actually going to therapy. Although I think everybody should go to therapy personally, but yeah. So, but you've got that whole component.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like that's what I say a lot. I think everybody should go to therapy. And I make sure that the disclaimer is this is not therapy, because I think that's really important to say that this is more of a self-help and more of a coaching style program that could be used in conjunction with therapy. or to kind of get your feet wet with self-help before entering therapy, or so I definitely want to make sure that that's something that is explained and understood by all the members in the program. So I think it's really important that, if this is something that you do decide as a practitioner, whether it's a course or a membership program, that, you're really clear about that disclaimer that this not being therapy, for the client and also to cover yourself.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's, I just love what you're doing, Amber. And, you said that you've been in private practice for about 2 years now. What have been kind of the exciting parts of that, and also maybe the places where you've really had to work hard or struggle with things?
Sure. The exciting part is you get to do it the way you want to do it.
Right.
I think that was such a cool part for me, not even realizing this is my practice. How do I want to build it? What hours do I want to work? Who do I want to see? What do I want this to be about? That was scary. But then once I realized that, no, that's amazing. This is you. I think that was the most exciting. I think the most challenging part for me was, switching back and forth between that therapist hat and that business, person hat, the logistical wise, and realizing at the same time, yes, this is you. So making sure that, finances and those type of things are in order, and what are you going to do about systems and setting things in place. So really getting that all streamlined for myself, so it wasn't so chaotic. I think that was, once I realized, okay, let me put things in place, and you do know how to do this. I think it became less intimidating, more exciting.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's encouraging to hear, because those are the things that I kind of hear from everyone, and that, you do get to make your practice your own and make it whatever size you want it to be, and make it look however you want it to look. We have kind of a joke within my family. My mom is notorious for giving just silly gifts or just kind of useless gifts. And that's on my mind just because as we're recording this, we're in the middle of the holiday season, but we would usually get something from her and look at it kind of like, what is this, kind of thing. And her response would always be, well, it's yours to do with as you wish. Yeah. And so with your practice, I think that's an important thing to remember, and that there's any number of ways to go about doing this and do what fits for you. I think is the most important piece. And probably as you're learning too, is that it will always change. Mm-hmm. The way you're doing it now is different. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just to be open to that change and kind of not fight it. I feel like that's kind of what I've learned through this whole process of the practice and the membership service. It's really based on, your needs, but then who you're trying to serve. So that's always going to be changing. So just kind of be open to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. Well, Amber, I want to be respectful of your time. Any parting thoughts that you have for people that might be listening, and maybe some things you'd want to leave them with?
Sure. I think that the biggest thing that I've learned this year is that ideas don't have to just be ideas. Go for it. Why can't it be you? I think I struggled with that at first. Can I create this? But I can. And I think a lot of people have a lot of great ideas that they're holding on to. And I think, take the opportunity and take the chance, because it's needed. I think if you think it's great, it's probably great. So don't hang on to it for too long.
I love that. I love those. I love that advice. And, yeah, that's great. Well, tell folks a little bit more about how they can get in touch with you and where they can find the Anxiety Lab and all of those things.
Sure. So you can get in touch with me through my social media. My Instagram is at Amber_anxiety. So it's Amber_verse_anxiety. And then you can find out more about the Anxiety Lab at theanxietylab.com. So yeah, that's the easiest place to get in touch with me.
Awesome. And we'll have links in the show notes and show summary for people to get to that quickly. So, well, Amber, thanks again for joining me for the podcast. This has been great. And I'm glad that people have gotten to know you and all the great stuff that you're doing.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed myself.
Awesome. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed hearing from Amber and learning about her story. Again, be sure and go check out her things. You can get to her by going to vitalitybehavioral.com. And also there'll be links, of course, here in the show notes and so show summary. And just learn more about what Amber's doing, because she's got some great ideas, and I'm sure you can learn from her, and she'd be glad to teach you as well. Also, be sure and check out our sponsors for today's podcast, greenoakaccounting.com, and Julie and her team are the leading accounting firm for private practice owners. That's what they specialize in. So be sure and check them out. They'll do a free consult with you and get you pointed in the right direction. Also, be sure and check out therapynotes.com. They are the leading electronic health record system for private practice owners and mental health providers. Again, they're who I use in my practice, and I can highly recommend them. Be sure and use the coupon code Gordon, just GORDON, and you can get 2 months of their services for free by checking them out at therapynotes.com. And also, real quickly before we go, be sure and check out the upcoming webinar that I'm doing with my friend David Hall. And you can find out more about that if you'll go to practiceoftherapy.com/training webinar. And in this webinar, we're going to be teaching you all the nuts and bolts around setting up training courses and training opportunities to bring in some secondary or additional income streams for you and your practice. So be sure and check that out. And also, real quickly, the focus groups, I've got just a few spots left. And depending on when you're listening to this, that focus group is going to start January the 21st, Thursday, January the 21st at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you'd like to reserve your spot in that focus group, go over to practiceoftherapy.com/focus group. And you'll be able to find that there, the application, and we'll start the conversation. So be sure and check that out. So thanks for being with me, folks, on this particular episode. Again, thanks to Amber for joining me on this episode. And if you haven't done so already, be sure and subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it, whether it be on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Spotify or any of the others, Apple. I said that already. Amazon Music and Audible now. So it's pretty cool that we're located there. So anyway, check it out. Take care, folks. Have a good rest of your week and stay safe out there and stay healthy. We're still in the middle of this pandemic and don't want you to get sick. So take care, folks, and have a good week. Been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.